What do I love about comics?
The thing that I love most about comics.
What I like about comics,
I love comics. I like comics.
What do I love about comics? Let me count the ways.
You are now watching WhoDooTV.
I think comics, despite all the dark and gritty reboots that are out there for those of you who love them, have never let go of their optimism and their inspiration and their ability to give us unapologetically hopeful stories and heroes that can really put a little more gas in your emotional tank when you don't feel inspired or hopeful yourself.
It's like watching a movie in my head. I often misspeak when I talk about like, oh my gosh, did you just watch this cool comic that came out the other day? Because that's really how I think of them. I think I was an adult before I discovered there was such a thing as movie storyboards, and they're just comic books. That's how they plan these things out. So it's the perfect combination of the visual arts and the imagination.
Comics for me are my laboratory, my playground to just kind of figure out the rest of the world that I'm experiencing, and then put it on the paper. And they've been good to me that way.
I like comics because you can tell any story you can possibly imagine with comics, and all you need is ink, paper, and time.
What I love about comics is that it makes me feel like a 8-year-old boy, and my uncle Terry, he was a huge comic book collector and he drew, and I used to love waiting for him to visit, and he would bring me all these old comics, and it just started me, just loving them. And he would draw whatever I wanted him to draw me, and it was just phenomenal. And what I would do is I would take the Justice Leagues, rip up the covers, cut them apart, make all the characters, that they had on the sides, and make all my friends take one, and we would be those characters, and just kind of early cosplay. So that's where my love began, and it makes me feel like that all the time.
What I love about comics, it's the only medium I know where you can tell a visual story by yourself. One creator can do the whole thing. You're the actors, you're the designers, you're in complete control of anything. If you work on a film, if you work in animation, it's cool, it's a collaborative thing, but it's never going to be one person's pure vision. And comics is the one place you can do that with pictures. You can write a novel, but to get the whole thing, the visuals and everything, I don't know anything other than comics that can do that.
what I like about comics is possibility. I like the creativity, the artwork, the visuals. I like the collaboration between the writer and the artist and all the members of the creative team. It's amazing to see what kind of amazing books and stories can come out of this process, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
The unique things about comics that I dig are the way it can play with the sense of time, the way that panels can manipulate, the environment of it. It just has as a medium, it has such a lot of unique properties. Comics has a language that only it speaks, and I really love to see that maximized.
I think the thing that I love most about comics, both like as a reader and as a creator, is that it's this medium that has kind of like unlocked my imagination and let me kind of bring those things in my mind to life when I'm creating my own comics, but also when I'm reading other people's comics, it brings their imagination to life, like in my mind, and that kind of feels like magic to me in a way. It feels almost like a superpower to be able to think of something and for that thing to become real in another person's mind. It's just really exciting to take part in both creating but also just absorbing like the imagination and thought and passion of other creators. Yeah.
I love comics because anything's possible. It's a medium. You can tell any kind of story any way. If you want to go in and do superhero stuff, you can have fun with that. If you want to create a modern horror romance, you can do that too.
The very best thing about comics is that they're accessible. to everybody. There's something for everyone. Superheroes, sci-fi, monsters, aliens, even drama, love, romance. Like there's something for everyone.
I like the imagination, freedom, and especially the artwork.
Why I like comics is such a basic and simple question for me. I like comics because it's an escape from reality. As a kid, I didn't have the most enjoyable childhood, but I could always count on the X-Men to be there, to be the team I could depend on. I could look at the Hulk and I could see his journey, and believe it or not, I could relate to the Hulk. The little kid who was abused and had this monster buried inside of him that was just waiting for the right moment to release it.
I love comics because it is a mix of two of my favorite devices, which is storytelling and visual. So words and pictures, it's a pretty obvious format, but just going back to like caveman days or hieroglyphic days, telling stories through pictures, I just think is like a very fascinating and base instinct we have as humans. And then to add style and flair and artistry and psychedelic, anything you want to put on top of that is sort of like the icing on the cake of this beautiful art form. And it's up to each individual creator to kind of interpret it their own way. You could have like Jack Kirby style, or, you know, Jamie Hewlett, Tank Girl, Painted Comics, Dave McKean, whatever. There's no rules, you know? It's just that finished product is just sort of like the main thing. It's awesome.
All you need is a couple friends and an idea and a couple bucks to print. You don't even need to print them out anymore. Like, comics is pretty much accessible to anybody on whatever level you want to do it. So it kind of makes storytelling accessible for everybody who doesn't have, you know, giant budgets for films or years to spend making novels. Like, you can start making a comic tomorrow and you'll find somebody who will read it.
You still need the reader to think about what things sound like as well. You know, with movies, it's half of what you see, half of what you hear, but with comics, you can only lay out so much, and you need the audience to kind of fill in that blank for you. And there's a bit of, you know, trust and teamwork that goes on, and it makes comics like something that's completely different, really special.
It feels like magic to me.
It's a world of opportunity, and it's always fun.
It's awesome. I dig it.
There you go.